The Fujian ship, which was disembarked in January, has been launched again in the afternoon of the 17th of February, with a cumulative docking time of about 3 to 4 weeks. Previously, there are analyses that the Fujian ship in the 6th sea trial into the dock. It is likely to indicate that the Fujian ship has completed the manufacturers of sea trial tasks to the hull of the full maintenance in order to hand over to the Navy for subsequent testing, and this is undoubtedly the next major event, because it also means that this launch marks the Fujian ship's sea trial work is about to enter the final stage. Optimistically estimated that if we wait another 1 to 2 months, we may be able to see the Fujian ship official announcement of service, because according to the Shandong experience, most of the Navy-led tests are used to test the ship's personnel, not the ship itself. Instead of sea trials, it's more like a sea trial, to allow thousands of crew members to run the ship independently from the manufacturer's engineers for the first time, and to systematically familiarize themselves with the carrier they're going to serve on. After all, during the manufacturer's tests, every time the Fujian ship goes to sea, it has to bring a team of several hundred engineers to follow the ship to collect data. At the same time, before the completion of the test, the living facilities on board the Fujian ship may not be able to take up the living of several thousand people. Several factors constrain each other, resulting in the carrier sea trial process. The ship can have a few hundred or thousands of people, even more. The participation of the naval crew in charge of the carrier's various system units in the testing process also lacked cooperation, or there was no way to cooperate at all. In addition to the necessary ship handling personnel, what people will be taken out to sea on the ship is basically determined by the sea test project. Today the deck scheduling is tested, then the ground handling unit has to follow. Tomorrow, if we are going to test the takeoff and landing of carrier aircraft, it will be the turn of the people in charge of air traffic control to go on board. So after the carrier is handed over to the Navy will need to conduct systematic training for the crew, integrating dozens of units with thousands of people, to ensure that the Fujian ship can be used properly in the Navy's hands. This testing will probably take place 2 or 3 times, with the first 2 usually being operational tests. One is to see if the several thousand crew members can work properly on the Fujian ship, and the other is to see if the various facilities on board, especially the living facilities, can be designed with the carrying capacity to meet the needs of the crew. After all, the U.S. Navy's Ford aircraft carrier has been in service for 8 years now, but has yet to develop full operational capability, and is even slower than the Shandong ship, which took 5 years. One reason for this is the lack of carrying capacity of the carrier's living facilities, with many of the crew or engineers accompanying the ship having no living quarters at all, and the problem of personnel congestion in terms of eating and washing being more severe. Although these problems did not directly affect the combat performance of the Ford itself, but the carrier is ultimately to be manned and maintained, and Ford now can not even guarantee the quality of the crew's daily life and living, will inevitably have a negative impact on the quality of personnel, which in turn pulls down the operational efficiency of the Ford. Needless to say, as long as the actual performance of the Fujian ship meets the design expectations, then there is nothing difficult about this test. The really challenging test is actually the Navy-led rehearsal test. After the completion of the operational test, this test will place Fujian ship in a simulated combat environment for the first time, so that the Navy can check the reliability of the systems in a wartime high-intensity use scenario. It is worth mentioning that Shandong's operational and rehearsal tests were conducted during the 7th and 8th sea trials, respectively, and after the completion of the rehearsal tests, the ship was briefly painted with the number 17 on its hull, which was later removed for unknown reasons. It was not until after the completion of the 9th official declaration of service that the port number was repainted. The view at the time was that the Shandong ship was actually ready for service at the end of the 8th sea trial. It was only because of some reasons that the PLA added an extra 9th sea trial to further verify its reliability, so the port number was removed. In other words, if everything goes well, Fujian ship will probably be officially declared in service at the end of the 8th sea trial, and will not engage in 9 sea trials like Shandong ship. As for when the Fujian ship can pass these last 2 hurdles, considering that the average sea trial interval of 3 months in the Shandong ship, in the end also only used 2 months' time to complete the 7th and 8th sea trial efficiency, Fujian ship has no reason not to do this. This also means that counting from today, Fujian ship will have a high probability, in this year's April the 23rd, that is, before the Navy Day service. For the U.S. Navy, which hasn't even cleaned up the Ford, the Fujian ship's commissioning is bound to come as a shock to them, because earlier than the Fujian ship launched the Ford-class ship Kennedy, the second ship is still soaking it, a little can see trial signs or not. At the same time, from the Fujian ship exposure began dock assembly counting. The ship only took 2 years to complete the construction of the hull launched, 2 years to complete outfitting and mooring tests, less than 1 year to complete the sea trials. The entire cycle of full counting did not reach 5 years. What is the concept of this time? Last week, a Western satellite spotted that China is suspected to have started the dock assembly work for its fourth aircraft carrier. It is speculated that the actual start of construction could be even earlier, around the end of 2024. On a 5-year cycle, by the second half of 2029, the Chinese Navy will have commissioned another carrier. The last country to commission a supercarrier on a 5-year cycle was the United States at the height of the Cold War, and the Newport News shipyard, which was responsible for building the carriers, mobilized almost all of its capacity to build the Nimitz class, making it impossible for the US to do the same thing today. Now, China's industrial machine is already at a level that the Cold War US could hardly match, even before it really got going. The carrier race between the US and China seems to have just begun, but in reality the end is no longer in doubt.